Hello everyone, it's Tim from Arcana. We're going to continue our lab series video. I think last time we configured everything we needed to get our head ends working. So we're going to finish our MEVO setup to get our spokes ready for provisioning. Now, one thing we can notice right away is now that our head end is done being configured, we have some new information on our home screen, the subnet usage, and it looks like it's saying at 99.61% free. So if you remember from our last video, we configured our two head ends. And what has happened is because we've configured the network address we're using for that DMVPN cloud, MEVO has automatically created that same network space on our configuration subnet blocks page. Now let me bring up our topology real quick so I can remind myself what this is supposed to look like. It's actually been quite a while in between the recordings of these videos. So here's our tunnel network that we set up, the 23241.0. So we need to set up these, and I'll go ahead and get the little pen tool. So we need to go ahead and set up these LAN addresses so that when we go to provision spoke routers, we're going to be getting the /28s from this network pool. Okay, so from our configuration subnet blocks page, I'm going to go to more actions, add, and we need to give our subnet block a name. So let's call this the video LAN. We'll leave this as type default. The network address 172.24.241.0 and the subnet. Now, each of our spokes want to have a /28. So let's actually skip this real quick. The spokes, that's the LAN subnet mask, those are /28s. So we'll select /28 over here. Now, how I like to think of doing the addressing is I like to think of it as making a pizza and cutting it up into different slices. So each spoke is supposed to have a /28, which is what we have set here. You can think of this as the slices, the number of slices we have. Are we cutting our pizza into 10 slices, 2 slices, 24 slices? So if we had only a /27 subnet, and if you do the subnet math, what's going to happen is that's only enough to make 2 slices of pizza. That's only enough to make 2 /28s. So if I click save, we can see on our subnet blocks page, the status for our subnet block is 0 out of 2. And that's because from a /27, we can only make 2 slices of pizza, only 2 /28s. So let me see if I can modify this. If not, I will just delete it and recreate it. So let's change this to a /24. And then because we are playing with addressing, MEVO is going to ask you for a password to change this. So let me just put in our default password. And voila, our subnet block size has now increased to 0 out of 16. So we can make 16 slices, so 16 /28 subnet address spaces from a /24. So this is kind of your supernet, and then this, the LAN subnet mask, is your actual, the actual size of the subnets that are going to be assigned to your spoke router. Okay, so now let's head over to configuration classes. The classes, and we'll go to more actions, add class. The classes is kind of where we map everything together once everything has been made. So the other way you can think of your classes, you can think of them as device types. You can think of them as device groups. Basically, any set of routers that you're going to be pre-provisioning that should have a same type of configuration on them is going to be its own class. So for my lab environment, I'm just going to make a class called the 1111 8 ports. These are teleworker routers, and the device type is the 8-port router. The LAN pool, let's set the LAN pool we just created. We need to set our DMVPN clouds. We're going to leave this as the default because we did not create any others besides the default, and we'll leave the management subnet as default as well. There's a lot of other tools on the left-hand side. You don't need to worry about these. Make sure auto approve request is checked, and then we'll just click save. Okay, so now that our class is made, let's make our account. So we'll go to the groups page, more actions, add. This is a teleworker. We'll call this Tim Video. Device name, the host name will also be Tim Video. So actually, let's change our name. We'll use my full name here. And then we need to give this a password. Now, the password that we use here is actually not used anywhere in MEVO, so go ahead and just fill in anything you want. Select your class, and we can click save. Oh, it doesn't like something. I have to scroll down. It needs an email. Okay, now we save. Perfect. Okay, so now let me select our device. Go to more actions, request, send request. I'm going to give myself an upload speed. The upload speed's only used as a shaper value. The best practice is to set this as close as you can to the actual upload speed that's going to be at the remote site. If you don't know what it is better to err on the size of being bigger rather than smaller. That way you're not accidentally throttling yourself. Once we hit OK, we're going to hope that this goes into the ready status, which it did. So this router is now ready to provision. So I've got my console cable connected to my router, and to provision the router needs to be in what we call factory mode, or it needs to have the factory configuration on it. You can email our support or our sales, and we will get that factory configuration over to you. Essentially, the most important bits of your config is it needs to have a 10.10.10.1 address, and it needs to have DHCP configured on it so that when your laptop is connected to it, you are getting an IP address on that network. This is because part of the SDP process, we go to configure whatever's at 10.10.10.1, so that needs to be configured on the router. So let's head to our provisioning URL and see if this will work. So this is the outside address. Let me see, I have to look up what is my outside address? It is 230. So it's the outside IP address of your SDP router, followed by ezstd/intro. Let's hit enter and see if this responds. Okay, so we're getting this error message, SSL version or cipher mismatch. So I believe this issue is caused because we don't have a proper certificate loaded onto our router. So what we can do is, because our SDP router has a certificate authority built into it, we can just enroll a self-signed certificate there. So let me drag over my head-end router config, and let's get that added. So let's see what trust points are currently on here. I'm going to make a new key, so crypto key generate RSA. We'll just call this outside. Now let's make a trust point. Crypto PKI trust point outside. Let's enroll it to ourself. Let's say RSA key pair outside 2048. We can put on an auto enroll as well. And now let's auth enroll it. So crypto PKI auth outside, crypto PKI enroll outside. Fill these in. Request from CA yes. Put in our request alias, which should be there if you deployed the router using our template. So let's grant that request. And now let's go to our HTTP config. And let's say IP HTTP secure trust point outside. Show crypto PKI timers, and we have, here it is, about 37 seconds until our outside certificate arrives. So I'll probably just fast forward this video and we will come back once the outside certificate is installed. Okay, so the timer has elapsed. So if I do show crypto PKI certificate verbose outside, we can see our certificates here. Let's hop over, and it looks like now we have a different warning message and it's letting us proceed. So now we need to enter in a username and password. Now remember, we're not using an iServer in this lab. So to log in, I believe we have this set to local. So if I do show run brief pipe include AAA, we are using local accounts. So I need to create an account in the SDP router with a username that matches the device name that he created in MEVO. Now this step is only necessary because we're not using an iServer. Normally we can separate these devices and we wouldn't be creating any accounts in your SDP. But for this lab, let's go ahead and do it this way. So let's make a new username, TimVideo. And we'll just also make the password TimVideo, that's fine. Okay, so now let's head back to our provisioning URL. We'll type in TimVideo, TimVideo, and we are in. So now let's see if our router will provision that TimVideo account. Or let's say if MEVO will provision it, so I'll click send anyway. This second prompt is connecting to that 10.10.10.1 address that I mentioned earlier. So this is the credentials to get into the router. The default on the factory config is Cisco, all lowercase. We have one more send anyway to push. And now if we take a look at our router, we can see that the configuration is indeed starting to get there. So in the background, you've seen that the web page has updated. So we'll just take a look at our console command, or sorry, our console session. And we're just going to wait and see if our tunnels come up. So sit back, I'm going to wait here and we'll probably do another fast forward. This should only take a couple minutes or so. Okay, so we can see from our syslog message that our certificate was installed. And we can see an egrep adjacency message here. So if I do show DMVPN, our tunnel to our head end is up. So let's go over to this side, show DMVPN, and there it is. So this pretty much is going to wrap up our lab series. I will continue making more videos and we'll start going over individual features of MEVO. But this is all you really need to do in order to get everything set up and working. Hey everyone, this is Tim from the future. I forgot something real quick. If we go back and check MEVO, our spoke router is actually going to say deployment failed. And this is because in my topology, the MEVO server doesn't actually have a route to our spoke that we just provisioned. If we go to the configuration classes page and we look at our class, and right now the default, or the management subnet, is currently set to type default. The type default for our LAN pool is this one called video LAN. So if I look at my account and I view the addressing details, the LAN type default has this address, 172.24.241.1. So I need to make sure that my MEVO server can reach this network. So let me hop over to my server and let me add in a route to that network. So I think it's route add 172.24.241.0 mask 255.255.255.0. And we want to go to our hub's IP address. which is 2.230. Okay, so let's see if we can ping it. Okay, so that's responding. So let's go back to our MEVO web page. And let me do a retry. So there's a restart and a retry. We want to do a retry. The difference is the restart's going to try to redo the whole provisioning process. The retry button's just going to repeat the last step. The last step, if we go to our logging page, was trying to ping an SSH to our device. So that's what we want to do. So let's do a retry. And it looks like it is reachable. So after this inventory finishes, this should say active installation. Perfect.